At my dad's birthday, my brother called me a loser and everyone laughed, so I announced I'd no longer pay for his education. He apologized, but it was too late. It was my dad's 60th birthday party, held in the backyard of our family home. The place was packed with extended family, old friends, and neighbors. Tables were covered with food, and music played from a speaker near the garage. My younger brother, Eric, was there, mingling and laughing louder than anyone else. The mood was light, but it shifted when Eric, in front of everyone, called me a loser. The crowd laughed, my parents included. What happened next caught them off guard. My response and the decision I made after changed everything. I'm the older sibling, 34, working as a software engineer with a side business that builds custom apps for small companies. It's not flashy, but it pays well and keeps me stable. I own a small house, no mortgage, and I've got no wife or kids to tie me down. Eric, my brother, is 27, 6 years younger, and hasn't held a steady job in his life. He's tried a dozen things: music, dropshipping, some crypto scheme that tanked, but nothing stuck. He's been in and out of college, starting and quitting 3 different programs. Every time he fails, he lands back at our parents' place, rent-free, with a new excuse and a new plan. Our family dynamic shifted after Mom's cancer diagnosis 5 years ago. Her treatment was expensive, and Dad's small hardware store was barely breaking even. I stepped in, covering medical bills, paying off their credit card debt, and even helping with the house repairs they couldn't afford. It wasn't a choice I thought about, it was just what needed to be done. When Eric wanted to try college again, I agreed to pay his tuition and fees. Nobody asked me to do it, it was just expected. My parents thanked me once or twice, but over time, it became normal. I was the bank, the one who fixed things when they broke. Eric never said thanks, not once. He texted me about payment deadlines, and that was it. My parents didn't push him to appreciate it either, they just wanted peace. The party was in full swing by 7 p.m. Dad was cutting into his cake, and people were snapping photos. Eric had been drinking beer since noon, his voice getting louder with every story. He was holding court near the picnic table, telling a group of cousins and family friends about his latest venture, a podcast about lifestyle optimization, that hadn't released a single episode. He was animated, waving his hands when he pivoted to me. He said his podcast was going nowhere, but at least he wasn't a loser like my brother, tinkering with code in a basement all day. The words hit like a slap. The group burst out laughing. My parents, standing nearby, chuckled too. Nobody corrected him. Nobody looked at me to see if I was okay. I was sitting at a folding table, holding a plate of uneaten potato salad. My face burned. I'd spent years propping this family up, and here was Eric, trashing me in front of 50 people, and everyone thought it was funny. I didn't plan what came next, it just happened. I stood up, my chair scraping against the patio. Every eye turned to me. I looked at Eric, then scanned the crowd, and said, "I'm done paying for Eric's school. He can figure it out himself." The laughter stopped. Faces froze. Eric's smirk vanished. I didn't wait for a response. I walked through the yard, past the string lights and the dessert table, got in my car, and drove home. My phone stayed silent for the rest of the night. The next morning, my phone started buzzing before I'd even finished my coffee. Texts from Eric came first, 5 in a row, saying he was sorry, that he was drunk and didn't mean it. Then Dad called, leaving a voicemail about how I'd caused a scene and embarrassed the family. Mom texted, asking me to call her, saying Eric felt awful and I should let it go. By noon, I had 20 notifications, all from family, all about what I'd said at the party. Nobody mentioned Eric's insult, or the years I'd carried everyone. It was all about me, my reaction, my decision. I didn't respond to any of them. I sat on my couch, staring at the wall, replaying the night. The laughter. My parents' faces. Eric's smug grin before I spoke. I wasn't angry anymore, just done. I thought about the tuition payment I had made for Eric's current semester. It was already processed, sitting in the university's account. I opened my laptop, logged into the payment portal, and found the contact for the bursar's office. I sent an email requesting a refund of the payment, explaining I was no longer funding his education. They replied within hours, confirming they could process it but needed a formal withdrawal of sponsorship. I filled out the form, signed it digitally, and sent it back. By the end of the day, the payment was reversed. Eric's tuition was now his problem. I didn't tell him or my parents. I didn't owe them an update. 2 days later, Eric showed up at my house unannounced. I saw him through the front window, pacing on the porch, looking like he hadn't slept. I didn't open the door. He knocked for 10 minutes, then left. My phone lit up again, more texts, more voicemails. He said he didn't know why I was overreacting, that he'd apologized, that he needed me to fix this. My parents called too, saying Eric was stressed, that he couldn't focus on school without my help. They didn't ask about me, didn't mention the years of support I'd given. It was all about Eric, always Eric. I blocked their numbers for the day, just to get some quiet. A week later, the university sent Eric a notice of non-payment. He had 10 days to settle the balance, or he'd be dropped from his classes. He texted me a screenshot of the email, begging me to reconsider. I didn't reply. The deadline passed, and he was officially withdrawn from the program. He moved back into our parents' house, sleeping on the same couch he'd crashed on after his last 2 failed ventures. My parents called again, asking me to sit down with Eric to talk it out. I told them I was tired of being the one who fixed everything while getting mocked for it. They didn't argue, but their voices were cold. They stopped calling as often after that. Life moved on after Eric's withdrawal from school. I went back to my routine, coding, meeting clients, and growing my app business. My house felt quieter without the constant buzz of family demands. I hadn't realized how much mental space their expectations took up until they were gone. My parents still called occasionally, but the conversations were short. They'd ask about my work, never about Eric or the party, as if avoiding the topic would erase it. I didn't bring it up either. I started spending more time with friends, people who didn't see me as a wallet or a punchline. My days felt lighter, like I'd shed a weight I hadn't known I was carrying. Eric, meanwhile, was struggling. From what I heard through a cousin, he was back to his old patterns, sleeping late, gaming all night, and pitching half-baked ideas to anyone who'd listen. He tried to get a job at a local coffee shop but quit after a week, saying it was beneath him. My parents didn't push him to do better. They let him stay, covering his food and phone bill, just like always. I didn't feel guilty about it. I'd spent years enabling him, thinking it was my role as the older brother. But that night at the party showed me the truth. No one respected what I'd done. They just expected it. Stopping the payments was the first time I'd chosen myself over their comfort. Months passed, and the family dynamic shifted permanently. My parents invited me to dinner a few times, but I declined. I wasn't ready to sit across from them, pretending everything was fine. They stopped inviting me after a while. Eric sent a long email around the 6-month mark, saying he was reflecting and wanted to meet up. He mentioned the tuition, how he'd learned his lesson, and how he was planning to re-enroll if I'd help him out again. The email wasn't an apology, it was a pitch. I deleted it without replying. He didn't try again. I heard from an aunt that Eric had started a new business, selling custom t-shirts online. It failed within a month. He'd spent more on ads than he made in sales. My parents were frustrated but didn't push him out. They'd always babied him, and now they were stuck with the consequences. I focused on my own life. My business landed a contract with a mid-sized retailer, and I hired 2 part-time developers to keep up. For the first time, I took a real vacation, 2 weeks in Colorado, hiking and disconnecting. I came back feeling like I'd reclaimed something I'd lost years ago. The family wasn't my responsibility anymore. I was done being their safety net. A year after the party, my life was unrecognizable in the best way. My app business doubled in revenue, and I moved into a bigger office space with a small team of 5. I started mentoring young coders through a local tech program, something I'd never had time for when I was the family's fix-it guy. My parents and I exchanged texts on holidays, but we didn't see each other. They never apologized for laughing that night, and I didn't ask them to. Eric was still at their house, now working part-time at a warehouse. He'd given up on college and his entrepreneur dreams, at least for now. A mutual friend said he complained about me, saying I'd screwed him over. I didn't care. His words at the party, and the family's reaction, were a wake-up call. I'd spent too long letting their needs define me. Now I was building a life that was mine, friends, work, hobbies, all on my terms. I even started dating someone, a graphic designer who shared my love for quiet hikes and bad sci-fi movies. For the first time, I felt like I was enough, without needing to prove it to anyone. I don't regret pulling the plug on Eric's tuition. If anything, I wish I'd done it years earlier, before I let myself become the family's doormat. That night at the party wasn't just about one insult. It was the breaking point of a lifetime of being taken for granted. Standing up and walking away gave me something I hadn't had in years: control over my own life. I'm not responsible for Eric's failures or my parents' enabling. They made their choices, and I made mine. I've learned to live for myself, not for their approval or comfort. It's not always easy, there are days I miss the old family closeness, but I wouldn't trade this freedom for anything. I'm not the loser Eric called me. I never was.